So are you saying that our soldiers are committing war crimes, or that you're going to investigate them for war crimes? Because if you're saying that, then you should just be unequivocal about it. But they can't, because they are just Democrats.
But he said, I can send the Marines, I can send the Army, I can send the Air Force, I can send the Coast Guard into any city I want to control crime. And the courts can't do anything about it. That's illegal.
Yeah, well, send troops into Chicago, send troops into polling stations, kill terrorists' families, arrest and execute members of Congress.
Well, don't act like a traitor. Trump now demanding that the seditious Democrats be locked up. Couple of posts on this and some references over to U.S. code that is being violated. Shared right here, 18 U.S. code 2387, making it a crime to cause insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, refusal of duty, and other things. And he cited a couple of posts on this theme, saying another one here, crystal clear, you don't get to tell the military to ignore the commander-in-chief, elsewise you belong in custody. Says the traitors that told the military to disobey my orders should be in jail right now, not roaming the fake news networks trying to explain that what they said was okay. It wasn't and never will be. It was sedition at the highest level, and sedition is a major crime. There can be no other interpretation of what they said, and they are squirming out there on the cables. I've got a bunch of them queued up, but the president doubled down. He said, many great legal scholars agree that the Democrat traitors that told the military to disobey my orders as president have committed a crime of serious proportion. Dun, dun, dun. So he is, of course, the president, and when he speaks, people listen. So what will be happening over there? Well, he also called in and explained that maybe the military courts will be looking into these traitorous statements, and had a phone call over with Brian Kilmeade. And here's what the president said when asked about this on the cables.
Action was pretty direct. This is really bad and dangerous to our country. The words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. And you wanted to say punishable by death. So people thought that you were saying death to those politicians. Were you saying?
If they're convicted,
well,
I guess.
If you look at sedition, if you look at, that type of a very strong form of being a traitor, it's a terrible thing to say. I must tell you, I heard it and I thought it was some kind of a comedy situation. I thought they would, it was some kind of a skit, and because I couldn't believe that they'd say it. And I watched Democrat congressmen and one Democrat senator yesterday on one of the shows. Didn't even want to discuss it. They said, whoa, don't get me into that one. They didn't want to get into it. That is a really serious charge. I'll tell you what they said, and it was, I don't know about the modern day things, because, modern day is a lot softer, but in the old days, if you said a thing like that, that was punishable by death.
Yeah, but you're not threatening them. A lot of people are interpreting there's a threat and there's security.
Well, I'm not threatening them, but I think they're in serious trouble. I would say they're in serious trouble. I'm not threatening death, but I think they're in serious trouble. In the old days, it was death.
Do you worry, Mr. President?
Seditious behavior.
Do you worry
that was a big deal.
Do you worry
Today, nothing's a big deal. Today's a different world, okay? It's a meeker, milder world. But I will say this, I think what they did is really bad. The hatred is pretty strong. But when they say, essentially don't follow the orders of the President of the United States to the military.
Do you worry that some of your guys are going to say no?
Young privates and young corporals and young sergeants, and they're not scholars necessarily. There might be a few, frankly, but they're not scholars. They don't, study the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. They know that. These are bad people. These are people that, in my opinion, broke the law. Now, what happens to them, I can't tell you, but they broke the law. That is a terrible statement. I can say if I ever said that and there were a Democrat as president, all hell would have broken loose.
Yeah, they charged him with 5 crimes for January 6th for saying, let's go down to the Capitol and peacefully and patriotically march, and created a whole conspiracy charge against him for a conspiracy against the rights of Americans, which I think could be very applicable to these Democrats. Maybe they should be prosecuted accordingly. Or maybe they could go spy on all their phone records, just have some hack FBI agent go to some hack judge somewhere and say, we need their records and we need a non-disclosure order so that we don't even have to notify them about the fact that we are stealing their records.
It's broken loose. I have had more calls from people, even Democrats, saying what a horrible thing that was.
So do you worry that someone on the Gerald R. Ford will say, hey, I don't want to do this Venezuelan mission. I don't want to sit out in the ocean. I'm out. Do you worry about them saying, I don't want to go to Chicago and be in the National Guard? I'm out. Do you worry about that?
No, I don't worry about anything like that because I'm a leader and they do as I say. But it certainly is not a good situation. It could.
Yeah, and if they do stand up and identify themselves, then that's fine. They can get out.
It happened with certain leaders. It could happen. I don't think that happened with me, but you never know. Look, that was a traitorous statement. That was a horrible thing to do. I believe they broke the law very strongly. I think it's a very serious violation of the law.
I know Todd Blanche seems to be looking into it. Your assistant deputy or your
well,
deputy
I think
attorney.
Pete Hegseth is looking into it too.
Uh-oh.
I know they're looking into it militarily. I don't know for a fact, but I think the military is looking into it. The military courts.
Mr. President, this week,
military courts and Todd Blanche going after these traitors. Here's what Todd Blanche had to say about it when he was asked about this over on with Fox.
Well, the investigation would absolutely be under what their intent was in saying this. And the question, we've all watched this a lot today, and the question you have to ask yourself is, what is their intent? What is the reason that they all went on a video and encouraged young men and women to defy court orders without even giving a hint of what's illegal, without even giving any suggestion of what law or what order they're being asked to violate? You cannot do that in this country, especially if you're a leader. And so what does the investigation look like? I think they should be held to account. I think that those congressmen should be required to answer questions about why they did what they did, and the American people deserve that, and so does President Trump.
That's right. Thank you, Todd, for saying that. And he is referencing their many appearances where they're trying to explain themselves. Couple of clips here. You can see RNC said that Maggie Goodlander, this woman right here, who I think is former CIA or former military, and she's married to Jake Sullivan, that guy who went to Oxford, who worked for Hillary Clinton, who was the first one to promote the Russia collusion hoax, saying that Trump was implicated via the Steele dossier, which was just Hillary Clinton campaign propaganda. So he's married to her, and then he went and worked as the national security advisor for Joe Biden and then wrecked the planet. We had a bunch of disasters happen on his watch. And I think even right before 10/7 over there, he said, this is the greatest time for peace in the Middle East in our lifetime, thanks to the leadership of this president. And you're like, you guys just left $80 billion worth of gear in Afghanistan, and you've wrecked the planet. You also had the Russians invade. I mean, the whole thing was a disaster. So here's now Maggie Goodlander, who is having conversations about this. She got asked, why did you make that video where you were encouraging our troops to violate their oaths?
You, Congresswoman, or any other of these Democratic members of Congress heard directly from members of the U.S. military or the broader national security community who believe they've been given unlawful orders?
Well, what I'd say is I have heard from service members. This is all a matter of public record. What we see is an uptick of concern from the men and women who are serving in uniform about the legality of orders that are being given.
Okay, so there is an uptick in concern. All right. Is it maybe because you're exacerbating it by saying that there are illegal orders that are going out when you can't even name one of them? Maggie, here's what else she said.
What illegal orders are you urging troops to refuse, and what do you hope they take away from your message?
Yeah, what orders?
Alex, we love this country. We love our Constitution. It is
So why are you encouraging our soldiers to violate their oaths?
our job as lawmakers, and especially in this moment, morally to be clear legally, and simply and clearly stating
what
the law says, what the Uniform Code of Military Justice says. It's not a crime. It is not treason. It is not sedition. It is our job. And I think it's really important that we do our jobs in this moment.
Yeah, okay. So again, saying nothing. Man, she really is the wife of Jake Sullivan, isn't she? They both can just say nothing. And still hasn't articulated in two clips what crime, what illegal order is Trump asking our troops to commit. Can you identify one? No, they cannot. So they brought out Alyssa Slotkin too. Says, well, okay, Alyssa, you're CIA. Maybe you're smarter than Maggie. Can you help us explain or understand what you guys were talking about when you made your little stupid TikTok video?
It does imply that the president is having illegal orders,
Yes,
which you have not seen.
I think for us, it was just a statement widely, right? We say very quickly to all the folks who come to us, this is the process. Go to your JAG officer, ask them for explanation, for top cover, for their view on things. We do that on a case-by-case basis, but we wanted to speak directly to the volumes of people who had come to us on this.
And it is very clear that no one should follow an illegal order. But it's very murky when you look at what is an illegal order. And if you go into morally, ethically, that's a pretty tough thing to look at and say, how do I navigate this?
Look, if you're going back to Nuremberg, right? Well, they told me to do it. That's why I murdered people is not an excuse. If you look at popular culture. There's like,
okay, are you alleging that our troops are murdering people just following orders like the Nuremberg cases in the Holocaust? Is that what you're saying, Alyssa?
you watch, A Few Good Men. Like, we have plenty of examples since World War II in Vietnam.
Okay, so are you saying that our soldiers are committing war crimes, or that you're going to investigate them for war crimes? Because if you're saying that, then you should just be unequivocal about it. But they can't, because they are just Democrats. JD Vance says, if the president hasn't issued illegal orders, then members of Congress telling the military to defy the president is by definition illegal. Checkmate. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So here's Captain Mark Kelly. He said, listen, Trump, it's President Trump. Mark, listen, Trump, period, says the guy with Captain Mark Kelly at the top of his title. Captain, Captain, Captain. He's president. You care about titles. Do you want us to respect your title there, Mark? Maybe we won't. Your continued threats will not intimidate me or keep me from doing my job, which includes oversight of the executive branch. Stop the threats of execution, hanging, and sending a mob before someone gets hurt. America deserves better. There's Captain Mark Kelly there for you. Great job, Captain Mark. Says, here's another one from Scarborough. He says, this is ridiculous. There are illegal orders. So Joe Brzezinski, husband to Mika,
okay,
said this.
wrong answer.
Well,
I'm sorry, with all due respect, wrong answer. President of the United States, the commander-in-chief does have, Jonathan Lemire, wide latitude.
Jonathan Lemire.
Just does. And the Senate can take that up, but he has wide latitude on strikes. Ask Barack Obama and drone strikes.
Yeah, because
Ask George
Obama
W.
took out U.S. citizens. Yeah, remember that? Didn't give them a trial. He didn't have ACLU gangbanging illegal alien lawyers screeching in there saying his due process rights were violated. He's an American citizen. You can't just execute somebody without a trial, without a finding, without a conviction. Remember that? They didn't care about that at all. But now you deport an illegal alien called Kilmar Abrego, who's already had a finding of removal, an order of removal that we've read many times here, saying he doesn't have any protections. They come crashing in for him because they care about illegals more than citizens.
Drone strikes. But where we know the president has said, I am going to give illegal orders to people in the military.
What?
Is when he was on Air Force One, coming back, I forget where he was coming back from, but he said, I can send the Marines, I can send the Army, I can send the Air Force, I can send the Coast Guard into any city I want to control crime. And the courts can't do anything about it. That's illegal. It's just illegal. And so Democrats...
Okay, there's Judge Joe Brzezinski. It's illegal. It's just illegal. It's not, actually. We are having a lot of debates about this. It's not just clear, cut, and dry. So he's on one of his rants again. I don't know what happened between them this morning. They woke up, probably she talked him up. Yeah, Joe, go out there and just say what's on your mind, sweetie. He's like, thanks, baby, I will. And he did, and it was a disaster. Then we've got this guy over here. He says, how do you respond to the allegations from your colleagues that your language is bad, talking about unlawful orders? These were Republicans. They responded with a better message than the Democrats.
Let's get to the content of what you had in that video you released, because there are also 15 House Republicans who are also veterans who released a video, including a retired 3-star Marine Corps general, Jack Bergman. Take a listen to this.
Troops, listen up. Any service member who refuses a lawful order is subject to court-martial for violating the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
We study what's lawful and what's not lawful, and the Democrats stunt insinuating that they're illegal or unconstitutional orders. It's downright dangerous.
It is corrosive. It is meant to weaken our country and weaken the military.
How do you respond to these allegations from your colleagues, fellow veterans, that what you have put out there is weakening and corrosive to the military?
Well, these unfortunately are some of Trump's core supporters that are rallying behind the president, and they know better. They know exactly the difference between...
So your core opponents to the president, and you're rallying to undermine troop readiness, military readiness. Do you want to make that point?
Lawful versus unlawful. We were very clear in the video that what we're talking about is unlawful orders. You have the president's spokesperson.
Yeah, but you didn't identify a single one. And so you're asking people to impute unlawfulness to lawful orders, which feels seditious.
Going into a press conference this past week and saying that we called for people to disobey lawful orders. They're simply lying because the truth is unacceptable to them. It's unacceptable. We wanted to start a conversation, and we did, about the dangerous rhetoric this president is using and the threats that he's made to use our military in an unlawful way.
Specifically what?
Yeah,
well,
what?
send troops into Chicago, send troops into polling stations, kill terrorists' families, arrest and execute members of Congress.
Well, don't act like a traitor. Don't commit treasonous offenses. You like how he threw that one in there? He's not going to round you up and just execute you. He's not like Chris Wray's FBI, who is going after J6ers, resulting in, suicides and other things. But it is hilarious, man. So they're hitting the panic button. He can't kill terrorists or terrorist families. What? He's the commander-in-chief. Would you rather him be like Obama and kill American citizens with drone strikes? So the commander-in-chief has a lot of power. No question about it. Even Joe Brzezinski had that to say. Klobuchar delivers an insane word salad, so she got asked about this too. They're all scrambling. They really don't know how to respond to this. Here's Kristen Welker with Klobuchar.
I wonder, do you know what the specific illegal acts are that your Democratic colleagues were referring to there?
Well, it's very clear in this code for the military that you cannot follow unlawful orders. And, that would be, I'll just use an example. Some of the judges have now found in certain cities that it is not legal to send in the National Guard. And those National Guard members have come home. Some of them are still there. But if their commander were to tell them, hey, go out on the streets and do this and that, that's not following the order that is in law. So I just use that example. I'm sure my colleagues would have others.
Yeah, it's a terrible example. Nobody even knows what you just said there. So you're having a situation where the military commanders, the National Guard commanders, are giving illegal orders. And so you want a little mutiny to happen there. That's Amy Klobuchar. But you can see the pattern. One after another, they're out there trying to paper over, I think, this badly produced video that was intentionally trying to interfere with Trump and the commander-in-chief's power under the Constitution. And now the president says they belong in jail. And I think a big takeaway is that it sounds like the military's looking into it. I'm not sure that anything's going to ultimately happen on here. Only the Democrats have the political courage, let's say, to go after their political opponents aggressively. The Republicans just don't. They just send letters and, indict people for mortgage fraud and lying to Congress. Lying to Congress is what James Comey is being charged with. Not his actual offenses, but lying about his actual offenses. It's that's what we get. So we've got that. We've got Letish with mortgage fraud. We've got Bolton with some classified document stuff. But the Democrats are now undermining the executive branch at every turn. And we'll see if the Republicans act like Jack Smith did, act like the FBI did. Maybe go subpoena their phone records. How about everybody who was involved in this little stupid video gets all their records traced, all of their phone records gobbled up. They can go to Verizon and say, hey, morons, you have done this historically, so just do it again. Give us everybody's records and don't tell them about it. And then they can leak everything to the media through Kash Patel's FBI, and then FBI can investigate themselves for the leaks and find they did nothing wrong. Just like the prior FBI did. Of course, all of that was wrong, but what we definitely want is equal application of the law. No one's above the law, and these Democrats keep getting away with doing things that the other side would not get away with. And the question, of course, is when will that stop? Likely when there are repercussions for it, which are hopefully coming soon.